Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Amar Elm, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to have Riley Sharwood, the founder of Adscendancy and Invincible. Adscendancy is a marketing consultancy dedicated to helping entrepreneurs build their dream businesses through unmatched marketing and business strategies. And Invincible is a sports apparel brand. Riley, welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course, I am super excited to be here. I always like to start from the beginning. So take us back, because I see that you started Ascendancy and Invincible relatively recently. Like both of them within 12 months. Ascendancy was 8 months ago, Invincible was about 4 months ago. So help us understand, what was the motivation behind starting? What were you doing before this? And explain
So,
to us the two different businesses.
so a while ago, I was very passionate about joining the military. I wanted to go into the Marines and do something like that. Stuff like this on films and TV all the time. You see these guys running around the desert with their guns and stuff, and it looks great, right? So I spent a lot of time focusing on trying to get into that industry. I spent a lot of time particularly looking at health and fitness, and it's actually one of the reasons I decided to study sports science. I ended up getting a bit of insight into what the military is actually like. And when I was there, it's not quite what it's like on TV and films, right? You don't have these guys like going rogue and running around and shooting people and crazy stuff like this. It's not what the industry makes it out to be like. So there was a period there for a while where I was a bit like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I fell into this world of business almost from looking at stuff on social media. Like, I think a lot of these influencers and stuff have come to light looking at business and stuff like that, and it's become very popular. That's how I got into it, and I think that's how a lot of people get into it. But you'll find that a lot of people are in it short term. They don't always necessarily look at the long term aspects of running a business and the technical side and stuff like that. But I did a big chunk of research into business and stuff like this, and I came out with the idea that the best thing I could start for myself at the time was a marketing agency. Because through that research, I obviously did a lot of research on marketing, and it was something I was very interested in. I take quite a big interest in psychology. I find it very interesting, and even as part of my sports science course that I studied, there was a big unit in there on psychology. I
Mhm.
thought was incredibly interesting, and that's why I started the marketing agency. Obviously, as you say, I started a apparel brand too. That was that stemmed mainly from my sports science studies. So I when you look around at these huge brands like Nike and Adidas and stuff like that, obviously when they first came about, they were a big jump from what had come before in terms of the sports technology that there was. But I feel like as of recently, there hasn't been a massive focus on the sports science aspect of clothing brands. And that's something I'm looking to build here with my brand Invincible.
Very interesting. Very cool. What were you doing beforehand, before you started the marketing agency?
Before that, I was actually in. This is gonna sound very odd. I was working in like a chicken shop. It was similar
Oh,
to
no way.
KFC, but it was
Which one?
owned by one of my. It, it's it was in the UK. It's a small chain called Top G Wings. It was owned by my friend's dad, so I was like, "Oh yeah, this is a great idea. I'll come in and do this." And it was actually there. His My friend's dad, who owned the place, he spoke a lot about marketing and stuff as well, which I think heavily influenced my decisions moving forwards.
Definitely. Wow, that's very interesting. Top G wings. That's hilarious. That's funny.
Yeah, and I
Okay, so help us understand. with the marketing agency, walk us through who do you help, who do you work with, how do you help them, what kind of marketing agency is it? Walk us through all that stuff.
We mainly work with e-commerce brands. That's the thing that I'm mostly focused on, and we do a lot of social media stuff mainly, particularly going into the paid ads route. That's something I'm quite passionate about because it's not just about the creative side of it. There is a very technical side behind it as well, which I think I'm more interested in that too. So
Yeah.
I feel like I can be creative at times, but I'm not the most creative person. So I like to try and have as much input on the technical side as possible because that's where my strengths are.
Got it. Okay, so walk us through your offer specifically. Let's say I'm an e-commerce brand and I am looking for some sort of marketing services. When I come to you, what specifically does your offer look like and what does your packaging look like?
Okay, so the way we do it is we will take a percentage of the return on ad spend of the client. So
Interesting.
they'll come to us and say, we've got this budget. What can you do with it? We'll create a campaign, we'll put it all together, present it to them, get the go ahead from they're happy with it. And then when we run that campaign, as long as they're all good with it, they're happy with the results and what they're seeing, we will then take a 10% of the return on ad spend.
So you wouldn't even do any upfront fee or anything like that?
No, we feel that helps in terms of converting customers. It
Mhm.
means there's a lot less friction in terms of bringing people on. There's no initial commitment.
Yeah, but that must be difficult as from a business perspective, right? Because you're putting a lot of trust and I guess trust is the main thing. But you also don't have any capital to fund whatever the ventures are. So I guess walk me through what your experience has been like that. Have you gotten into situations in that regard or?
There have been a few, but it's very rare. You tend to find that a lot of these business owners, when they come into something like this, they usually do commit. I've found that through my experiences, a lot of these business owners, they're very trustworthy, and so far I've had some absolutely amazing clients, and hopefully it continues to stay like that. But yeah, like you say, it has happened once or twice, but it is quite rare.
Yeah. Are you looking to scale the marketing agency by any regard?
Yeah, I look to take on a few, but I think moving forward, my main focus is going to be on the clothing brand.
Cool. Help the listeners understand why that is.
For me, I think it's mainly just because it is where my passion lies. However, I have seen with a lot of the data that I've got from the clothing brand recently, that has been scaling a lot faster than the agency has. And I think overall it is quite a data-driven decision as well as a passion-driven decision too. Just looking at it from both of those perspectives, I can see it is moving in the direction of the apparel brand.
Got it. Got it. What to help people understand a little bit further, what metrics were you looking at to make that data-driven decision?
A lot of it came down to social media metrics. So what we were getting like the support behind before we actually launched anything, which was pretty overwhelming. And then when we did launch, we were looking at things such as like the amount of visitors we were having to the website, the conversion rate, and the general progress. Like what we saw, what I was afraid of was if we built up this hype around the brand and we had people coming in and thinking it was great at the start, and then as we moved on, it's dropped off. But I haven't seen that, so I'm fairly confident in the ability of the brand to grow.
That's exciting. When's the launch gonna be?
The launch should be literally like at the end of this month.
Okay.
That's when we're pushing it for, which we are on schedule at the moment. So hopefully it should all go according to plan.
So walk me through that. What have you been doing leading up to this in the past couple of months to prepare for the launch and to maximize the number of customers that are looking at your apparel brand?
Obviously, the first thing we did was a lot of market research and competitor research just to get an idea of the sort of products that people want and then how we can bring in the science aspect of that to make these products as high performance as possible. That was the first part. And then, as you say, there's the getting people interested in the brand. And the main way I did that was I think the first thing I did was I spoke to people that I knew about it, like friends, family members, to see what they thought about it. And obviously, they were quite shocked because it's not something you come across every day, is it? Someone say that. But the support from them was quite strong. So I decided to create the social media accounts and start putting some content out to see what that was like. And very quickly, I could see that there was a good amount of support behind it. And even from the beginning of the social media up until now, there has been just a constant growth in terms of the views and the engagement and everything we're getting on all that content.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, can you tactically walk us through those steps for the listeners that don't understand? Because I think this would be helpful. Like when we talk about social media, which platforms did you leverage the most? Did you run any paid ads campaigns? Was it just word of mouth? What did that look like, practically, tactically speaking?
Okay, so I think dependent on obviously what type of business you are running, the platforms you use may differ. But I focused mainly on platforms like Instagram and TikTok because if you look at those platforms, that's where you're seeing the most engagement from younger people. Then it's where you're seeing a lot more growth on these platforms from accounts that perhaps aren't as established as on other platforms. But I think it's very dependent on where your target audience is. Like that was another thing that we did to prepare as well. We had to find where our target audience was before we started putting stuff out there. So I would say before you just go and try blasting content out on Instagram and TikTok and doing all the same things that I did, I'd say look at who your target audience is, find where they are, and then test those platforms.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, shifting over to Adscendancy, with that, when you were growing that business, how were you acquiring leads? And I guess even to this day, how are you acquiring leads today for the marketing agency?
Mm. At the start, it was a lot of cold outreach. So you're looking at like cold emails, DMs, and things like this. And obviously, that is effective to a certain extent. But as we moved on and progressed, we found that with the amount of people that we are reaching from social media, it was a much better return on time and effort to start shifting the focus slightly more towards social media than cold outreach. Obviously, now we still do a bit of cold outreach and stuff, particularly for higher ticket clients that we're looking to get because we want to make it more personal. But there is a heavy focus again on social media. But I think one platform that we use that drives a lot of sales that people wouldn't usually think of is LinkedIn
Yeah.
because it is a very business driven platform. I've found that on there, that is where we get our highest conversion rate, our highest views, highest
Yeah.
engagement on content for the agency. It's all on LinkedIn.
When you say social media, is that you're running paid ads, you're posting content on a consistent basis? Is it a combination of the two? What have you found to be the most effective versus organic versus paid ads when it comes to growing a marketing agency?
So we have a slightly different strategy. There's not a major focus on one of the two. What we do is we use our organic content to put out high value content, things that business owners will find valuable in terms of running a business and marketing. And then we will use our paid ad to retarget those customers and use that as a CTA almost. So they get to know the agency a bit better, and we gain that trust through the organic, and then we
Understood.
actually convert using the paid ads.
Understood. And you're using LinkedIn ads? Is that what you mean? Or
Yeah, majority is LinkedIn.
okay, very interesting. Walk me through what does the sales process look like for the marketing agency? So let's say somebody comes in as a lead. What are the steps they go through for them to actually become a client?
Okay, so if they are coming in through like social media or whatever, they'll be directed to fill out a form to a meeting that will first qualify them as a client. As I said at the beginning, we focus mainly on e-commerce companies. So if we have someone coming in that doesn't quite fit that, we will say, this perhaps we're not for you. And I think that's quite important in sales and marketing. People will very often they'll just take anything they can get, and that's not always the best thing to do, I think.
Yeah.
However, if they are qualified, on that meeting, we will then book them into another meeting to help them get an idea of what we do and actually almost push the sale in that second meeting and hopefully get them on board. And once we've done that, we should get a commitment on that second meeting. After that, we will then have one final meeting with them that will go through our plan of what we want to do with them, and then one final confirmation that they do absolutely want to go ahead with it.
Got it. Very interesting that you have that double conversation or confirmation in the third meeting. Now, if you were to think about the future, if you were to think about the vision for yourself, for these two different companies, what are your top priorities moving forward over the next 12 months?
I think for the agency, the top priority is trying to deliver the best results we possibly can for current clients so we can then use them as social proof to bring on new clients. And within the apparel brand, obviously, it's trying to push those sales and hopefully get some new products sorted out and get an idea of what people actually want from us and what we can deliver that's going to have a lasting impact on them to try and keep them as a returning customer.
Very cool. Very cool. And it's interesting that you're working with e-commerce brands and then you started the apparel brand is going to be an e-commerce brand as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. What do you feel like, and just so I'm clear, you're trying to get higher ticket clients for the marketing agency, right?
Yes, that's correct.
What do you feel like is the biggest challenge you're facing right now to growing that company?
I think at the minute you'll find that within that space there is quite a lot of competition. Because if you look online, a lot of these social media influence down that marketing agency route,
Yeah.
and then you end up with lots and lots of other people, perhaps with less experience and less of a plan, just trying to make a quick buck. And it heightens the competition within there and it almost brings the perception of the industry down. So a lot
Yeah.
of companies will look at it a bit like this a bit dodgy. Do I really want to be doing this and will I get the results that I want?
Yeah. How have you been navigating that?
I think for us, it is mainly social proof. We really want to try push the results that we've had from previous clients. One thing we also do during a lot of those meetings as well that I spoke about earlier, we will try to convey what we want to do with them as best as possible. Because if we can try and get them on board and think, oh, actually, that is a really good idea, you have a much higher chance of gaining their trust and converting them.
Yeah, that's interesting. It is very true. When you have that in place, the trust factor gets built up very well. Let's go into a quick closing lightning round. I'm gonna rattle off some questions at you. Don't think too much,
Yeah.
just first
Okay.
thing that comes to mind. Cool.
Okay.
What's
Let's go.
one tool or what's one tool or resource that's been a game changer for you in your companies?
Bit of an interesting one. I would say photo and video editing tools, just because, as I said earlier, with the massive emphasis on social media, people want that high quality stuff. They look, and a lot of you guys listening have probably seen it before. You'll be scrolling through and see some brand with a like really low quality photo and stuff. Instantly, you don't even consider clicking through to the website. You're going to leave. So I'd say editing
100%.
tools are massive.
Yeah, you gotta grab the attention. What's that editing tool called? One more time, please.
We use Adobe Creative Cloud. So that just comes with all the Adobe tools in it, like Photoshop, Lightroom, Illustrator, everything you need.
Amazing. What's the best piece of advice that you've received or heard about scaling your companies?
I would say take a scientific approach in that you first experiment with content, look at the data, see what works, and then reuse what works. A lot of people will see something that works, does really well, and they'll say, oh, yeah, that was nice. And then they'll move on to the next thing that doesn't work. And then they'll have 10 more things that don't work before they get that next thing that works again.
Crazy, crazy. What's one tip you'd give to new entrepreneurs starting in 2025, their businesses? What's something if you actually this might be a better way to phrase this for you. If you could go back in time and give yourself advice that you know now that you wish you knew at the time before you started Adscendancy, what would that advice be that you would give to your younger self?
Don't hesitate to do things that take you out of your comfort zone because it's usually outside of your comfort zone that growth actually happens. A lot of
Mhm.
people will hide away from big opportunities, and if you don't take those opportunities, they may never come around again. So always take every opportunity you are given.
I love that. That's powerful, man. What's the best way for people to reach you?
Best way I would say is probably through social media. In fact, probably my Instagram would be the best way to reach me. So literally, if you just look up on Instagram Riley Sharwood, no spaces or anything, I should come up.
Awesome. Pretty easy there. So
Yeah,
that wraps up another insightful episode of Founders Future. Riley, thank you so much for sharing your journey, sharing your insights, and coming on with us today. So I really
thank you very
appreciate
much
that.
for having me.
Anytime. For our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're looking to scale your business and enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to discover how we can support your growth journey. Until then, keep on climbing.